Well, I think it's disturbing. I think it's disturbing in that the defendant here, a convict, actually went out and made statements that were so inflammatory that they presented a danger to FBI agents. He made statements through his campaign that the government
they came to assassinate him, right?
They tried to assassinate him, and given his history, given the fact that he was held in contempt of court 10 times in the New York case, given the fact that he's already a convicted felon, given the fact that he was subject to a gag order in the DC case before Judge Chutkan, and given the fact that he incited an insurrection on January 6, 2021, it would seem to be a very compelling case in which the court should consider fashioning some kind of an order designed to restrict his ability to make statements.
So that is George Conway providing, I think, a good number of good reasons why Donald Trump probably should suffer from a gag order in the classified documents theft case in the same way that he has in some of his prior cases. He has repeatedly made threats. He has repeatedly lied about those who were involved in this case, in particular the FBI agents who did the initial raid that led to where we're at today. But as of right now, regardless of all those reasons, he's not under a gag order, and it doesn't look like he will be anytime soon because Judge Eileen Cannon, who is in charge of this case and is, if there ever has been a conflicted judge, it's Eileen Cannon. She doesn't seem to be having it. In fact, she's going in the opposite direction, getting angrier at the prosecution just for talking about why he should be under a gag order than Donald Trump for repeatedly necessitating one.
The video will continue in just a moment, but first I have a message for you. TYT needs your help. Membership is vital to survival, so please go to tyt.com/team and become a member today.
This week, she actually scolded prosecutors while they were arguing for the imposition of a gag order, saying, "I don't appreciate your tone. I think we've been here before. I expect decorum in this courtroom. If you're not able to do that, I'm sure one of your colleagues could take your place." So the prosecutors had asked Judge Eileen Cannon to change the terms of his bail to bar him from saying anything that might endanger agents that are working on the case. The judge questioned whether they could show that there was a reasonable necessity to impose the measures in order to protect the safety of the agents. She apparently had a hard time discerning a direct connection between the messages that he would send out, specifically about this case or about the agents, and any palpable threats to agents working on the documents case. She also noted that she has redacted agents' names from public filings, saying that that should protect them against harm. But then they pointed out that some of the names have already been made public, and those agents have already faced threats as a result of what's been said. The prosecutor got frustrated with that. I can see why. She got frustrated, not with the fact that her argument about why it wasn't necessary didn't really hold water because the names have been released regardless and the threats have been made regardless. She was just mad at him for, I guess, getting emotional about the entire thing. Adrian, I'm really curious what you think about this because we technically had gag orders in some of the previous trials. We know from practice that they weren't worth much of a damn. And in this case, it doesn't even look like we're gonna have one. So what do you make of that and what are the consequences of it?
It just, again, it further erodes the rule of law and how the administration of justice is supposed to work. When you have a gag order, the courts are in a position where they have to balance free speech rights with that need for fair administration of justice. They need to have the process to go forward and to do so in an appropriate manner without prosecutors, jurors, or other members of court staff being in fear of their lives or taking actions and steps so that they are not furthering our democracy and the justice system. And the thing is with Trump's continued calling people out, using his soapbox in order to create a situation where people are unsafe that are working in the courthouses, that's exactly what you're gonna get. You're gonna get people who are unwilling to do their jobs or are in some way biased because they're in fear for their lives. And for Cannon to be questioning this or conflicted in some way, thinking that striking out a few names is enough, it really just shows her slant and bias. But that's something that we've seen from Judge Cannon since day one, given her being a Trump appointee and also so incredibly pro-Trump that her fellow judges have asked her to step down or to step back. It shows you that it's just not going to be a fair process in any way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it might barely be a process in any way. I mean, it's novel to have her showing her bias in what she's saying, because normally it's just in that nothing is happening. We're just gonna take a couple more months, I guess, between filings. And I have to think seriously about some of this nonsense the Trump team is saying. Come back to me in 6 weeks. That's what it generally feels like. But I want your thought about the other side of this. So that's the prosecutors. Todd Blanche, arguing for Donald Trump, says it would be extremely chilling to President Trump and what he's allowed to say. And he's saying there, he's talking about specifically in advance of the debate. If Donald Trump is under a gag order, he wouldn't be able to talk. Like, remember what he was saying about the New York case. Like, I can't say anything when that's not what the gag order does. This would be to protect the FBI agents, okay? And I just want to remind everyone of why they might need that protection. The fear is not that Donald Trump is going to say it's political, that it's unfair, election interference. He is lying about the agents and about the raid in a way that could very plausibly inspire some of his deranged red hats to take matters into their own hands. Remember, for 2 years now, he's been saying that they planted evidence. That's not an abstract thing. If it was planted by the agents. They falsified evidence, according to Trump, to make him look guilty, to make him look bad. Now, forget the fact that he goes on to say that he could have all that stuff anyway, so I don't even know why the planting of the evidence would be so bad, since apparently it doesn't break the law. But much more importantly, recently, he's been saying they came to murder him. Okay, there was an assassination plot. The FBI agents were locked and loaded to gun him down, to gun Melania down, to shoot Barron. That's what he's saying. Now, if you're a red hat and you hear that these agents were going to murder your god emperor, what would you do? Just wait to see what happens with the trial? Oh, I hope he gets off. Maybe most would do that, but not necessarily everyone. And that is the fear. And all Todd Blanche has to say is, like, imagine if Trump had to go through a debate without lying about an assassination plot against him. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it wouldn't be a debate for Trump. It's what he's doing is he's inciting violence. He knows what his followers are capable of. We got to see that on January 6th. So he knows what he is doing in terms of creating this atmosphere where he suggests that he's a victim or there's some target on his back in some way, even though what he has 24 hours around the clock Secret Service protection. Yeah. It continues to show how he weaponizes his quote unquote free speech, when that's not what it is at all. Our society doesn't allow you to incite violence, to use your words in some way that create a situation where other people are unsafe, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, exactly. And what part of his criminal defense relies on him telling lies on the debate stage about this? What does that have to do with an eventual jury? It doesn't make any sense. Now, Judge Eileen Cannon seems pretty clear at this point that we're not going to get the gag order that should be there. But that does not mean that there couldn't be some, I guess, dramatic twists in this case, assuming the case goes forward at all. So the first would be, there was a discussion about limiting Trump's remarks, obviously. As part of that, as part of the gag order discussion, Judge Cannon, quote, seemed intrigued by a separate issue, how the government has paid for the work that Mr. Smith and his team have performed over the past year and a half. Mr. Trump's lawyers have filed a motion to dismiss the case, claiming that Mr. Smith was improperly appointed and funded. Okay, so the fact that the Trump defense team says, hey, could we just not do this at all? That's not surprising. They've tried to do that a dozen different ways in every case that he's faced thus far. But very rarely have we been told ahead of time that the judge, who has already proven to be as biased as one can imagine a judge to be, like on the level of like an Alito or something, was intrigued by it. The idea being here that something about his appointment or the way he's been paid is so egregious that the whole thing about a president stealing documents having to do with nuclear defense and invasion plans of Iran, forget about that. We need to derail the entire thing because something his appointment. And look, they're gonna put forward that stuff. They're his lawyers. We can't have standards for them, but we should be able to have standards for the judge. And in this case, we really can't. So that's potentially could derail the entire thing. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.